Welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. We were away last week.
Yes,
weren't
we were. It was right after Labor Day, and it was a primary day and everything else. So
we took a long
first day of
weekend.
school, yeah.
So anyway, I'm Robert Winters,
Judy Nathans.
and well, I guess some interesting things have happened.
Today is 9/11, and it is a Tuesday, so it is kind of.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't
yeah.
that originally Tuesday?
It was a Tuesday.
The
Yeah.
yeah, I actually thought about that this morning.
Yeah.
I actually said in the kitchen this morning. I said I was kind of glad it was a cloudy day.
Yeah, because that day
my
was
reckon it was
extremely
beautiful, sunny
I know.
day,
I know.
and I get very sad when it's a beautiful
I know.
sunny day on September 11th.
I know. You're right.
So in a way, it was just different enough.
You're right.
To kind of take the edge off
You're right.
about it.
But we will never forget. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting how there's certain incidents, like when, for those of us who are old enough to
Yes.
when President Kennedy was assassinated,
Yep.
or when the Challenger disaster
Yeah,
occurred.
that's true. And like for my parents' generation and your Pearl Harbor must have
That's
been.
right. There are
like
these
total.
pivotal moments where they're
Yes.
so etched in people's minds.
just
say,
can't.
Say,
I
well,
remember
where
every
were you
detail.
when and everybody knows.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how the mind works
Right.
that way.
Yep.
So, anyway, since 2 weeks ago, we did have an election, a primary election
Yes.
last week, September
Pretty
4th.
exciting. Yeah.
And it was actually pretty interesting.
Yes.
Some of the things were predictable, some of the things were not so predictable.
Yeah.
And and there's a lot of 20/20 hindsight of people, including me, I suppose, who would say, "Oh yeah, I could see it coming," but honestly, I don't know that I really could see a lot of the
Yeah.
results
Well, when
coming.
you don't quite get out of Cambridge, and even though Cambridge was pretty, if we're talking about the 7th District, it was pretty pro-Iana, but still, if you don't go to Dorchester and you don't go to Boston and you don't really see what's going on the ground, you don't really know.
Well, another thing too is that a lot, people talk a lot about campaign finance and the influence of money in politics, but I think what we're starting to see more and more
You can do it cheaply.
is that it's not actually the money that's winning
Right.
elections, it's actually social media. And I
Absolutely.
think President Obama is probably
He started
his
it.
people really,
Yeah.
really.
And
really
now
put
there's
that
a whole
out there.
thing about digital texting, which you don't know because you don't have an iPad.
What
you
is
don't
this
have a phone.
thing called digital
Although, do you get
texting?
text on your iPad? If you paid for a service,
Honestly,
you could.
I
Yeah.
pick up that iPad maybe once
Well,
every 3 weeks, so I don't even
It
know.
is the new wave because I got 2 personal digital texts regarding, I think, I forget the governor, somebody, and then you actually can respond back and you say, no, I can't attend, and they say, thank you for letting me know. And it's the new thing and it's cheap to do.
Right. And actually, there was, there was one of the things that was in Tip O'Neill's book, like all politics is local.
Yeah, you didn't
Yeah,
have cell phones back then.
Right. But the thing is, there was a phrase, there was a story about a woman who he'd known his whole life, and he asked, "Did you vote?" And he says, "Did you vote for me?" And says, "Tommy, you didn't ask. People like to be asked." And
That's why face-to-face, bottom line, knocking on doors.
That's absolutely true.
Is really
Yeah,
important.
But also even
Yeah.
the perception that you've
Right.
been asked
Exactly.
seems to matter. And this is true
Yes.
not only in politics, this is true for street performers. People say
Yeah.
that if you're a street performer, if you're, let's say, a juggler or a magician or whatever, the thing is it's if you want to make some money,
Yeah,
which is sort of the street performer
Yeah.
equivalence of getting votes, right?
yeah.
You should really get the audience engaged. And to whatever
course.
degree you get the audience engaged, they
Well,
feel a part of it, and then
Since
they
when
vote for you.
Isn't that like obvious in like most human
You know,
interactions?
it's at some level
I
it
mean,
is
come on,
obvious.
if you're not a good teacher, right?
Right.
Do you engage your students?
Right, but the thing is that if you look at the way a lot of, because I'm on various mail lists for political things,
Yes.
and they invariably have an ask in the letter. They're either asking for money, or they're asking you to come to this or come to that, or they
Okay.
seem to be asking your opinion in a survey or a poll,
Yeah.
even if they're not really keeping track of anything in the poll.
Well, I don't know
Because-
about that. I think
well-
some of their minions might be.
Right. But the thing is that people simply want to have the perception that they
That
are
they
being
are
asked and they're
that they
valued.
have that their opinion matters.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
somebody cares about me. That
Right.
somebody is interested.
Right.
I
I think volunteerism in campaigns actually works doubly so.
absolutely.
And I heard a story. This was about one of the Kennedys. I don't remember which.
Which one? Yeah.
Could have been Joe Kennedy, back when he was the congressman, but I don't really know. But it turned out there were too many volunteers showed up.
Too many.
Right. Well, the Kennedys, right? And they didn't want to have people feel like they weren't wanted. So this is sort of a horrible thing in a way, but apparently, as the story goes, they had some people putting things into envelopes in one room, and then they had volunteers in another room taken them out because they just wanted people to
Oh.
feel like they were engaged
That-
in the
Are
activity.
you sure that's true?
Well, it could be just one of those stories that's
Yeah,
told,
let's-
right?
yeah, that's
but
sort
but
of-
the idea was you didn't want people to sort of go out of their way to do volunteer work.
Yeah, but if somebody just wandered into that room, that would really cost them a vote.
Well, what you really should have is something for everybody to do. You should always
Well,
have
you
a
know,
list
too
of
many.
things
I
that
doubt
need to
if
be
that's a
done.
really a problem anymore. If too many people showing up
It's
to
probably
volunteer.
not, actually.
But if you show like for canvassing, then you send 2 at a time out instead of just 1, because
That's
usually
right.
you just have 1.
Yeah,
But
that's
anyway,
right. So you should
but
immediately
I
have
don't
some
think
lists
that's
that
an
you-
issue these days.
Right. If anybody
Okay.
comes in, just hand them a list
Right.
and go say, knock on
And
some
now
doors.
with you can call from home, you get lists, so there's no, you'll always want more people.
Right.
Never turn down a volunteer for anything.
That's really
That's-
true. Yeah. But anyway, the main
Yeah.
point here is simply that.
So were you surprised at all? Let's look at the key ones that where there was contestant.
Yeah.
There was
Let's actually.
let's look
some
at your
here.
nice,
Yeah, I'll actually look at some here. If we
Of
scroll
course,
down
we
a little
have
bit
Robert,
here.
who always does this for every election, which is just so
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah. So okay.
Right?
So these
Okay.
are just some of the
Oops.
key
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
We're not going to do all of them. So
No.
there's so many uncontested seats. So we're just
Right, let's
focusing
just do
on
the
them
ones
here.
that were contested. Now,
All
we're
right.
looking at both Democrat and Republican
Yeah.
primaries.
So in terms of the Democratic, the primary for governor for the Democrats, I think most of the handwriting on the wall was for Jay Gonzalez,
Yeah,
and there were a
in
lot
the
of like,
primary, yeah.
in the primary. Now there were some of the Massey people are very, very emphatic. Their zeal is not to be denied.
Yeah,
To the point where it actually started to infuriate me, like when I was going down for, I think it was the fireworks, July 4th. The Massey people are the only ones who felt absolutely entitled to put their posters up on every public pole anywhere
Wow.
they want, anytime they wanted.
Yeah, that's not
because
good.
after all, they're the
Yeah.
righteous ones, right? So I actually started getting pretty irritated with him and his volunteers, quite honestly. But I thought Gonzalez was going to win this hands down. It is interesting to me.
well, it is, what are you talking about, 64-35?
Yeah, hands down.
Oh, right, so
Not
you
even
thought,
close.
right, right.
Yeah, so I thought that was how it was going to go.
Yeah.
And in a certain way, and I'm a little surprised at this because I was a convention delegate.
Yeah.
Was it June or July?
June, yeah.
And Gonzalez won the
Endorse.
endorsement of the convention,
Right,
right? And I forget exactly what the percentages were, but
was
the thing
higher,
is,
right?
It was sort of in that ballpark.
oh, was
though.
it the same? Yeah.
So am I starting to believe that maybe, I'm not really believing this, but is it possible that the representation at the convention might actually have been reflective of Democratic voters? I don't usually believe that because party convention goers tend to be the most one-sided of all.
Yeah, I know,
Right.
but Robert, this is a primary, so who shows up at primaries?
Well,
People that vote a
Democrats.
lot, right, but I'm just saying, so I don't
Yeah.
see why that would be any different from
Yeah.
the.
Well, actually, it's sort of like the representation on your ward committee
Yeah.
versus regular Democrats, though. It's
However,
sort of
when you look
different.
at the Cambridge, you clearly see there were people maybe that are newer that,
Well, and you also see
right.
Massey had, sort of probably
Higher
driven
votes.
by the climate change issue. Massey got associated with being the one who was going to be a big fighter for.
Well,
on the
also,
climate
he,
change
he,
issue.
he is not the establishment. That's how people see it, in some ways. I mean, he's an outsider.
I think, yeah, because
You know.
Gonzalez worked within.
He worked within the Patrick administration,
administration,
and he's seen more, and he was supported by a lot of establishment Democrats, and
Yeah,
Bob
yeah.
Massey is more of, I shouldn't say, I don't really know, but more we're using the word progressive, which I think is unfair, but,
Yeah, but
yeah, anyway.
Massey's run for other things in the past.
But
so-
look at all those blanks, though. How do you account for that? People who didn't care about the governor, or
And-
maybe
and-
they wanted to vote.
and
They're going to
actually-
vote for Baker.
And it's interesting. That's
know?
actually just in
Yeah.
Cambridge. That's the Cambridge.
I know,
governor.
but that's what I'm looking at.
Right,
I'm
right.
looking at that.
Yeah. So, but the thing
Yeah.
is that it's probably reflective across the.
You think so?
Across the board. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see
I don't
the
think Cambridge would have
statewide.
been all that different in terms of number of blanks.
I
as
don't
a
know.
percentage.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right.
But
So
so
then,
anyway, I wasn't at
yeah.
all surprised with that result. In terms of Charlie Baker, I thought, of course, he was going to win. Some people are making a big story about the fact that, well, he only got 64 to 36.
Well, actually, they're concerned because he apparently also is leaning towards Jeff Deal over Warren, and
I know.
that's problematic.
I know it is problematic,
Yeah.
but the thing is that so much political rhetoric starts to just get
Yeah.
spawned around now. So
Right.
everybody's going to try to associate Baker as much with Trump as they possibly can.
Yeah, but if he does a little,
Well,
all right.
if
Well,
he-
I'm
if
going to
he-
see what happens because I like
Yeah.
him and I like Gonzalez, but right now I'm just going to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So-
the
yeah.
the numbers prior to the primaries were that any Democrat was going to, in this bluest of blue states,
Yeah,
the Democratic nominee, whoever it was going to be, was still going to have an uphill battle to defeat
absolutely.
the Republican.
Right.
There are many people I know now who are actually starting to maybe take a somewhat different view of that, and that maybe Baker is beatable, but largely
Yeah.
they say it depends on voter turnout. Like, so
Right.
if all the Democrats were to
Right.
show up and vote because they're all energized because like they hate Trump or whatever, then actually Gonzalez could beat Baker. I think it's actually a possibility.
It's possible if this stuff about him coming out more, rather than staying on the sidelines about this
Right.
Jeff Deal, who's really not. He's a
Yeah.
very
I mean,
Trump person,
right,
and
if-
that would be problematic.
If Baker were to say something more like, listen, I support my party, right? That said, I've got my race to run, and
Right.
and I'm not.
He's
particularly
worried about
concerned
that
with the others.
36% that voted for Scott Lively, but you know what? It's only 36%. He could still win by 52%. And
Right.
look at the statewide thing; it's 74-25.
But also
So
keep in mind
what's he
that
worried about?
if you're a Republican,
Oh no, that was the statewide.
only,
Sorry, that was Cambridge.
right,
Yeah.
if you're a Republican, the only race really on the ballot of any interest might have been that one and maybe the Senate one. So the thing is, you
No,
want
the
to
Senate. They're interested. Yeah.
right? But the thing is
Yeah.
that a lot of the Republicans would have just stayed home. I
Right.
think.
That's true.
And a lot of the independents probably would have picked up the Democratic ballot
Right.
because it was a little more interesting to vote that. So we'll see how the independents
Right.
go. Again. Now I kind of, even though
Yeah.
I love Jimmy Tinkle to death,
Right.
and I was really hoping he would win.
Yeah.
I
I'm
kind
not
of always
surprised.
thought it was an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And again, in the same tone as the convention versus the primary. Jimmy Tinkle got about 40% at the convention. He got about 40% in the regular primary
Okay, but
election.
Quentin Palfrey was nominated by the Democratic convention, or
Yes,
not? Or
Palfrey
supported.
got the
Okay.
convention nod.
Okay. Yeah, I mean he worked in the Obama administration. I
No.
mean I don't know much about him, but he seems pretty.
Yeah, I mean it's remarkable. No,
Yeah.
Everybody I talked to though seemed to think that Tingle, even though Palfrey was winning it here, is that Tingle. The logic was that Tingle would actually benefit the Democratic ticket
Yeah.
better.
Right.
But
Well-
would draw more voters to vote for the Democrats. But
Well.
we'll see how it plays
As
out.
someone close to me said on the day, because he wasn't even going to vote, and I said you should vote for Jimmy Tinkle. He said, "Isn't he a comedian?" So that's as
Yeah,
far.
Right. You're switching back just to show that
Yeah.
human
Okay.
beings
Yeah.
are-
Right. We can go back
we're
to
not
that in
just
a minute.
podcast.
Right. Well, I
Right.
wouldn't mind a podcast.
Yeah. Right. Well, actually, we've been putting up the audios of this thing here lately too.
Okay.
So anyway, back to this here.
All right.
I-
So now this is an interesting one. The Secretary of State.
Now, I absolutely believe that even though Zakem managed to squeak out the convention endorsement,
That's right. Yeah.
I never thought that was solid.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think he really, really sort of did himself a disservice in so many ways as
Yeah.
a candidate.
Some of his debates performance wasn't that good.
But I think
Yeah.
part of that is just because, there's one thing, when you feel that you're actually not winning, you can, there's several things you can do, one of which is you start trying to throw Hail Marys.
Yeah.
You start saying, well, let me go negative, let me attack.
Well,
my
who
opponent.
went negative first?
I think
Because they both
Zakem-
had negative stuff.
Well, what I would say to that is that if you actually go back to even at the convention, which was all
Okay.
peace, love, and understanding,
Yeah.
Zakem came out basically saying screw Galvin, and he was really being emphatically
But did he
negative.
bring up those votes about the 30 years ago?
No, not then.
Not then.
No,
Okay.
no. So the thing is
Yeah.
Zakem from the very beginning
Yeah.
was being very, very harsh against
Okay.
Galvin. And
Okay.
Galvin, you could see in everything he was saying, doing, and
He was trying to just keep
I
not
think he
getting
was
in the
getting-
fray.
he was legitimately getting pissed
Sure.
off, quite honestly.
Oh no, you could. Yeah.
And I think that when it came time to have that on-air bit with Jim Browdy, Galvin was basically
That was the
saying,
last one, I think.
Yeah, so
They
I
did a
think-
couple, I think.
So
but-
Galvin pretty
yeah.
much came back and said, "Okay, kid,
All right.
you want to beat me up?
Yeah.
We'll show you how to play the
Yeah.
game." Right?
Well, that would already been in the papers about his
Right.
voting record and stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So I thought Galvin was going to win easily.
Huh.
I didn't think it was necessarily going to be like 2-1.
Well, certainly, because first of all, this was a statewide race. If it was only Boston and Cambridge, he might have pulled it off.
Might have.
Well, yeah. Well, look at Cambridge. Look at his numbers in Cambridge. He won. Zakem. Yeah.
Yeah, but we squeaked by.
Right.
Zakem.
Hey, so did
Yeah.
Trump.
I think I think part of the reason for that is that it's actually related to the Presley
yeah.
rate. There's certain voters of certain age actually came out in far greater numbers. I think, though I don't have the.
Well,
I
know
figure
some
it out.
older people that had signs
I know.
for Massey and Zakem
Right,
and Tingle.
But so much of this is
And
about
Presley.
voter turnout. So
Yes.
the thing is, if you have people who normally wouldn't even be coming out to vote, who
They're going to
came out
vote for the
vote,
young
they tend to
progressive
just
guy,
vote,
right?
If you
yeah.
don't know who they are, but one seems like the young.
And he's been
new
around
guy,
too
right?
long. He's been around too long. He's old.
Yeah,
Let's get rid of him. Yeah.
Right. So there's a certain amount of resonance.
Yeah,
about
I'm
that.
kind of glad. I mean, I voted for Galvin.
I actually
I
feel
want to steady the course.
I
at
felt
this point.
positively
Yeah.
about Galvin, and actually it's
Yeah.
very interesting. It actually relates to something that's happening in the 3rd Congressional District.
Yes.
The thing
Today
is
he just
you
took
know,
over.
I've
yeah.
pointed out that when Bill Galvin, you know, not everybody, but there's a actual real movement right now from people around Massachusetts and around the country to promote ranked choice voting.
Which is similar to what we do.
We use ranked choice voting in Cambridge, but we do it to elect multiple people proportionally.
That's true.
So some people screw up the
right.
definitions of proportional representation and ranked
Right,
choice
because
voting.
that's more than one
Yeah.
person filling a seat, but the
Yeah.
idea is the same. in a way, right?
The idea of basically
Like
having
first,
your
second
ballot
choice,
sort of
third
act
choice.
as proxy for the person, say, well, if I
Right.
don't get my first, I'll take my second. If I don't get my
Yeah,
second, I'll
and then
take my
those
third.
votes get as they pulled
I mean,
up, and
it's
then
like a
it'd be
series of runoffs, which is why it used to be
much
called.
more fair.
It used to be called instant runoff voting.
So,
But the thing
yeah.
about Galvin was that, and I pointed this out to people, when Howie Fain, myself, and a few others were involved in this
Fair
group,
Vote.
it was called the Fair Ballot Alliance
Ballot.
of Massachusetts, which was kind of spun off around the same time as the Center for Voting Democracy, which eventually became Fair Vote, which is a national organization.
Okay.
They're promoting ranked choice balloting and alternate voting systems all around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing this back maybe around 1992, 3, 4,
Wow.
somewhere around there.
Long
Okay,
time
like
ago.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
And 24 years ago, there was this guy named Bill Galvin who had been, I guess, a state rep.
He was a
who
state
was
rep, right?
Then his first-time candidate to be Secretary of State.
Okay.
And there were multiple candidates, and I believe one of the
Oh.
other candidates that year was Michael Capilano.
No.
Somebody
For Secretary of
mentioned
State?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So he was mayor of Somerville, right?
Oh,
at
so
the
he had-
time.
okay, I
So
didn't
he
know
was
that.
thought he might move up. At least somebody said that to me. I didn't actually remember.
All right,
that.
so don't quote us
Yeah,
completely.
yeah,
We have to look
yeah.
it up. All
I
right.
could be crazy, right? So anyway, so we asked. I didn't personally do the asking. Howie did, but we asked all the candidates. Well, would you support, ranked ballots and preferential voting and either
Mm-hmm.
proportional representation or instant runoff voting or whatever you want to call it back then?
Wow.
There was one candidate who said sure.
And it was Galvin?
That was Galvin.
So what's
and,
happened?
And it's kind of funny because now sort of ranked choice voting is sort of in the vanguard. this is what progressives
Isn't
all
Maine
want.
doing that for a little bit?
It is
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
and the Republicans sort of tried to fight back on it, but in
course
fact
they
they
did.
did a people's override.
Yay.
So it's actually been done, yeah.
Good.
So it's in place now for all the state
So
elections.
why hasn't it happened then in the state?
Well, the thing is the way I like to explain it. And I was
Yeah.
talking to somebody on the phone last night about this.
Yeah.
Is that Massachusetts has almost all of the state senate and state rep seats are unopposed.
True.
So they win under the system as it is today, even if the
Right, so
system
why
is horribly
change
flawed.
it?
So
Yeah.
the general rule is if you're winning and getting reelected every couple
Mm-hmm.
of years under a system, why change the system?
But why not just have it kick in when there's more than two candidates or more than
Well, you have
one?
to change the state law to allow that to happen.
Well, let's change the
So-
state law.
And the legislators, well, they're not the only ones who can do that. Now, I'm not
Okay.
100% sure, but
All right.
this Voter Choice Massachusetts or whatever the name
Yes,
is.
someone came around and canvassed
Yeah.
me about that. Is
Yeah.
that different
They're-
than fair vote?
Or, they work in conjunction.
They
Fair
do.
Vote is national, so this
Oh,
is
okay.
local. But,
And voter
but,
choice
but
is...
in a sense, they're kind of a local chapter. Of
Okay,
Fair
that's
Vote
good to know.
For all
All
intents
right.
and purposes. So the thing is that they're promoting ranked choice voting around the state now, and it's actually getting a much better reception than I've ever seen.
Well,
in
again, for a
Massachusetts.
younger electorate.
Maybe its time has
Yeah.
come, finally. For
Yeah.
those of us who were pushing it 25 years ago, that wasn't the time, but maybe
Right.
the time is right now.
That's good.
Now, I don't think that, I would be surprised if the legislature took the action to enact it. But the strategy may very well to be
Can
to
the governor
make
do
this.
it?
No.
Oh, can it be a ballot
It
initiative?
could be an initiative petition. So I don't know if that's exactly the plan. I think I've heard it, but I don't know if that's actually what's happening.
A binding one, not
Yeah,
a non-binding.
well, initiative petition is a binding
Is it-
one.
okay,
It's not
initiative
like a
is-
referendum, yeah.
Thank you, okay.
Yeah, so, sort of like when they outlawed rent control, that was an initiative petition. So,
Right.
the legislature could maybe try and tweak
Well,
it,
I
but
I
it
would
couldn't
like to
change
do
it.
that.
Right, so that may be how it gets enacted.
Okay.
But you've got to win people over. And the truth is that you have to do a lot of voter education to get people to understand
Well,
that this is not
But I
something
think
weird.
this third congressional district
It most
race is
certainly
really
is.
going to be a great example of it.
So let's mention that. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't actually have the stats on this, but I
Yeah.
actually have them, but just to
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so actually we should mention the big one. Big elephant in the room was Capuano Presley. We only alluded to it.
Yeah, we can talk a little
Right, we
bit
can
in the
talk
next
about it.
segment.
Yeah, but the real contest here was it was the third congressional district.
Well,
which
no,
is,
wait, I wouldn't phrase it that way. There was a contest between Ayanna Presley and Mike.
Oh yeah. But,
Okay,
but
it's a different kind of
Let's call it
contest.
the wild west.
Right, because there were
contest.
10 candidates.
10 candidates in a
Yes.
Democratic primary, and think about how absurd this is.
Yeah,
A usually low voter turnout September primary
Mm-hmm.
with 10 candidates horribly splitting the vote.
right.
To elect-
Day after Labor Day.
Right, to get elect one winner take all,
Right.
who then runs unopposed because there's no Republican
Oh, there
challenger in
isn't.
November.
There is none.
Well, even if there was, it would be kind
Still,
of a
it's almost-
formality,
yeah.
right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I've made the point over and over again that if Massachusetts legislators, mostly Democrats, my friends,
Yes?
want to call themselves progressive and they don't look into changing a voting system to
Yeah.
correct something as so idiotic as that,
Yeah.
you have no right to call yourself progressive or
Well,
even
to correct what?
wise.
That they run unopposed?
No, you can't change that.
No.
But the thing is that if you change the election system, and there are a
That
variety of things
more
you can
people
do.
might vote. More people might run because their vote might count more.
Or even if not more, even if there weren't a whole lot of increase in voter turnout, at least the way the counting of the ballots actually came to elect somebody would make more sense.
Right, but I'm saying more people might run for an office if they knew they had more of a chance than just
With
running
ranked
against one.
ballots,
Right,
that
yeah.
is true. That
To some
that
extent.
there is a good likelihood you'll get more people jumping in because they figure, sometimes it's out of ignorance. Quite honestly, if you say,
Right.
well, hey, if it's ranked, we can all do it's transferable votes. Maybe I'll get lucky.
Yeah,
But the truth is that it's still usually the top vote getters
Sure,
that win,
right. right.
but not always. And there are
Right.
some spectacular examples when that wasn't the case.
Hmm.
In San Francisco and in Vermont and elsewhere.
San Francisco has ranked
Ranked
choice
choice
voting?
voting for the Board of Supervisors,
Okay.
the mayor. Yeah, I think they have a maximum of 3 that you can vote for because it's
Oh.
limitations in the voting hardware.
Okay.
Sequoia voting machines only allow 3 rankings. So,
Oh, okay.
so it goes. More and more voting machines, as they're being manufactured, have a little more flexibility to allow more rankings. And that's partly because I think the manufacturers don't want to get caught short
Right.
having machines when
right.
a state or a municipality wants ones that can do ranked choice voting, and they say, sorry, we can't help you.
Right, so that's good
you
that they're
lose a customer.
changing. It's good that they're
Right.
seeing ahead, yeah.
Exactly, and actually Cambridge can help here because we actually have to have custom programming done for our municipal
Right.
elections, and all of that programming can be used
I
actually.
think people have requested it, haven't they,
Yeah,
over
oh,
the
yeah.
years? Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is that the voting machines that we'll use in Cambridge could then be used for ranked choice voting anywhere. Then so.
Yay.
So that's a way to go. Anyway, what happened in the third
Yeah.
judicial district? So I'm not going to give all the names of the candidates, but there was
Well,
Coe
the top were Lori Trahan and Dan Coe.
and Dan Coe, and they both got approximately 21.6% of the votes.
Right.
Okay, Trahan was up by I think about 100.
Well, the final count was 152, counting provisionals, I think, and,
It was 122 by the art of newspaper.
oh, 122. I was thinking 52
It
at
had
first,
dipped
and
down
then
to
it was,
52 and then up to 122.
yeah.
So the thing is that I believe the recount is going on now, but the
They
interesting
have to
thing
do it by Monday.
the deadline
or-
is Monday to
For
September.
there's 37 towns that voted in this,
Right,
which I didn't realize.
so when they do the
Wow.
recounts, they do it within each town, and they
Right.
basically just have to do all the validations. There's a surprisingly high number of ballots that appeared
That-
to be blank.
Exactly, but
And-
they might have circled the name instead of
That's right,
filling,
and
so they're
that's-
trying, and
that's
Galvin
their
is
change.
pointing that out.
That's right.
They've
Now,
all got to be looked at,
it's an interesting thing, speaking
Yeah.
of Bill Galvin,
yeah,
is that he actually looked and saw the sort of the elections official.
discrepancies.
Apparently,
Yeah.
there was like one last skilled election official, I think in Lawrence, who
Or
was
Lowell,
on the road,
right.
who was about to
Right.
leave the
That's
job.
right.
So basically said, look, you guys screwed up a lot of things
Yeah.
in the procedures of handling the ballots.
Right.
So the Secretary of State's office has taken over the recount.
It's both in Lowell and Lawrence,
Yes.
both of them.
Yeah. So the thing is, so it matters.
Yep.
Obviously it matters. But in the end, it's just to adjudicate, a contest where two candidates were differed by
Sure.
0.14%.
And it just goes
in
to
a
show
wide
you,
open
every
race.
vote matters. When you get down to something like that, out of 26, together they got 36,000 votes?
Right, but I would also argue if
152
21.6,
votes.
add the two together, it's 43.2% of the ballots seem to be fighting each other.
Yeah.
And the other 58% are basically being thrown in the dumpster because
Oh, I
there's no
agree. Well, then,
transferable
right, I'm
ballots.
just saying, when people say their vote doesn't count, don't.
Right.
That's
I mean,
not
vote splitting is a big deal. So if you
Yeah.
have two candidates who are roughly similar and they both have some appeal,
true. Yeah,
then they can split the vote, and then you have one person who didn't have a comparable candidate ends up greatly advantaged
Yeah.
in this. It's interesting, actually, when Mike Capuano was first elected for this, for what was then the 8th Congressional District,
right.
there were 8 candidates, I believe, and he got
That's
through.
true, there
He,
were a
he
lot.
was in with like 23% of the vote,
Huh.
right? That's all he got. And
They didn't need more than that?
no, because they split it 8 ways. And
Oh, I
and
remember this now. It's Chris Gabrielli.
Gabrielli was in
and
there,
then
and Ray
was the,
Flynn was in there.
Right.
And the thing is there was a very real chance that Ray Flynn, who was the only
Yeah.
pro-life candidate,
That's true.
because he was the only one,
Yeah.
had a very good chance of being the person who would be elected,
Oh,
because
thank
all the
goodness
other
we didn't
7
get that.
candidates. Right, it would have been a spectacular example of the ridiculousness of how election systems work without some sort of transferable votes.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, we can talk a little more about
yeah,
that
so
in
we're
the
almost
next,
out of time on this
yeah.
one, but we'll talk a little bit more about it because I think it's a really interesting
Yes.
topic, and then we can
It
come
is,
down
and
to-
it's
come
the-
back down a
yes.
little bit closer to home. So
Right.
anyway, we got another election coming up in November, so
That's right. Important.
but this was the more interesting one. So
Seems
anyway,
to be.
see you in
See
a
you in a
few.
bit.